You clicked this video because deep down, some part of you knows you don't want to wake up one day and realize you lived the wrong life. And here's the truth. It doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in, piece by piece. It starts with every quiet compromise, every little lie you tell just to fit in, every truth you ignore just to stay safe, until one day you look in the mirror and you don't recognize the person staring back. That's not fate, that's a pattern. And Nietzsche? He saw it coming from a mile away. Behind all his anger, all the intensity, was a message, one that hits hard. You either learn now or you suffer later. But if you're watching this, that means there's still time. Truth number one, you were never taught how to think, only what to think. From the moment you're born, you're trained to obey. Raise your hand, sit still, memorize, repeat. But not once are you asked, what do you think? You're only taught what to think, and then rewarded for repeating it back. Nietzsche believed this was the beginning of the end for the individual spirit, because the crowd doesn't want thinkers, it wants followers, it wants agreement. So, people grow up confusing obedience for intelligence. They become experts at copying the blueprint of success, following the rules, checking the boxes, doing what's expected. But in the process, they lose something essential, the ability to question. And when you stop questioning, you don't just lose freedom. You lose yourself, because real thinking, it's dangerous. It threatens systems, it threatens the comfort of the crowd. Nietzsche saw it clearly. A life without independent thought isn't a life. It's just a performance in someone else's story. And by the time most people realize they never really thought for themselves, they're already trapped in a life they didn't choose. Truth number two, most people want comfort more than truth. Here's the thing, if you show most people the truth, they won't thank you. They'll reject you. Why? Because comfort is addicting. It's warm, familiar, easy. Truth? Truth is cold, awkward, uncomfortable, inconvenient. Nietzsche called this out over a century ago. People say they want the truth, but what they really want is reassurance. They want to be told they're okay, that they're doing fine, that nothing needs to change. So they surround themselves with easy answers, with feel-good slogans, with groupthink and echo chambers. Not because they're bad people, but because they're afraid of what the truth might cost them. But truth doesn't care if you're scared. It doesn't sugarcoat itself for your feelings. Truth shows you the world as it is, not as you wish it were. And Nietzsche believed most people can't handle that. So instead, they choose distraction. They choose fantasy. They choose lies. But eventually, truth shows up anyway, uninvited, unavoidable. And by then, it's usually too late. Truth number three, what hurts you often reveals you pain. Most people avoid it like the plague, but Nietzsche, he leaned into it. He said, to live is to suffer, to survive is to find meaning in the suffering, because pain is a mirror. It reflects what's real. What you fear reveals what you're attached to. What breaks you shows what you've been neglecting. What you fight against exposes what you think you are. But instead of listening to pain, we silence it. We numb it, avoid it, distract ourselves from it. Here's the hard part. Pain doesn't leave. It waits, it grows, until one day it forces a confrontation. But Nietzsche didn't believe in running from pain. He believed in walking straight into it, because on the other side of pain, that's where transformation lives. But most people don't get there. They waste years, sometimes decades, avoiding the very thing that would have made them strong. Truth number four, the crowd is rarely right, but always loud. There's something seductive about the crowd. It gives you a sense of purpose, identity, belonging. It feels safe. Because hey, everyone else believes the same thing, right? But Nietzsche warned, loud doesn't mean wise. The crowd doesn't think. It reacts. It doesn't ask questions. It just repeats. He once said, insanity in individuals is something rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. Let that sink in. Most people live their whole lives chasing approval from people who are just as lost as they are. They don't chase truth, they chase validation. They don't stand for something, they just blend in. And the tragedy? By the time they realize the crowd was wrong, they've already sacrificed their individuality just to belong. So if you want a life that's truly yours, you'll have to disappoint the crowd. And most people, Nietzsche believed they aren't brave enough to do that. at least not until it's too late. Truth number 5, kindness without strength makes you a target. You were probably told to be nice, be polite, be agreeable, be generous. But Nietzsche didn't romanticize blind kindness. He saw that kindness without strength, that's just weakness in disguise. Because the world doesn't reward softness, it exploits it. Predators don't respect kindness, they use it. Takers don't stop because you're generous, they just take more. Nietzsche wrote, "The weak are always forced to lie." Why? Because without strength, you can't afford honesty. You suppress your needs, you hide your boundaries, you shrink your voice, all in the name of keeping the peace. But peace without power, that's not peace, that's submission. The person who is kind and strong, that person changes lives. But the person who's only kind, they get used, discarded, forgotten. And most people only learn that after years of betrayal, by friends, by family, and worst of all, by themselves. That's the first 5 truths. And if any of them hit close to home, good. That means you're still alive, still capable of changing. But we're not done, because the next part, it gets darker. We'll talk about why your discipline keeps disappearing, why people stop supporting you when you finally start to succeed, and how your own shadow is silently sabotaging you. If you're ready for that, let's go. Most people chase motivation like it's some kind of magic fuel. Listens in the barky several country. They wait for the right mood, the perfect setup, the right podcast or inspirational quote to kickstart them. Anyway, they told on your journal actioncy. But Nietzsche would have laughed at that. He understood something deeper, something uncomfortable. If you're waiting for motivation, you've already given your power away. Discipline, he believed, isn't about punishment or hustle culture. It's about integrity. It's not about how you feel, it's about who you are. You brush your teeth every day, not because you're inspired, but because it's part of your identity. You hold the line on your boundaries, not because it's fun, but because they matter to you. Discipline is self-respect in motion. It's doing what aligns with your values, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because if your actions are tied to your mood, you're building your life on sand. But when your actions are grounded in meaning, you become unstoppable. Most people don't realize this until they've already burned through years of broken goals, missed chances, and self-betrayals. They think they have a motivation problem, but really, they have a respect problem. Truth number 7, people support you until you start to grow. It's easy for people to cheer you on when your growth doesn't threaten them. But the moment you outgrow the version of you they're comfortable with, that's when things shift. Nietzsche didn't sugarcoat this. He believed most people don't want you to fail, but they also don't really want you to evolve beyond the role they've assigned you. Because your growth, it reminds them of their stagnation. Your ambition makes their excuses harder to live with. Your transformation breaks the unspoken balance they relied on. So when you start speaking up, listen. When you set boundaries, listen. When you take your life seriously, some people won't clap. Listen. They'll distance themselves. They'll mock you. They'll suddenly say, "You've changed." And they're right, you have changed. And that's not a bad thing. It just means you've stopped shrinking for their comfort. Most people only see this clearly after losing relationships they thought were forever. But the truth is, those relationships were built on a version of you that never challenged them. That version is gone, and that's growth. Truth number 8, your shadow will sabotage you if you ignore it. Everyone has a shadow. It's the parts of you you've been told to hide. Your anger, your envy, your shame, your selfishness, your doubt. Nietzsche, just like Jung after him, believed that the more you suppress your shadow, the more control it has over you. You can't get rid of it. You can only pretend. And while you pretend, it doesn't go away. It just works behind the scenes. It seeps into your thoughts, your decisions, your cravings. It whispers sabotage when things are going too well. It lashes out when you finally get close to peace. People think being good means being harmless. But Nietzsche saw real strength as something different. Not hiding your darkness, but integrating it. Imagine your shadow as a child you locked in the basement. The longer you ignore it, the louder it screams, the more damage it does. But once you listen, once you understand it, it stops being a monster. It becomes your ally. Most people only realize this after they've ruined something important, a relationship, a career, their own peace, and finally see it wasn't life that betrayed them. It was the unacknowledged parts of themselves they were too afraid to face. Truth number 9, you can't think clearly if you're always pleasing everyone. People-pleasing looks like kindness, but more often than not, it's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of disappointing someone, fear of being alone. And the cost? Clarity. When you constantly prioritize other people's expectations, you stop hearing your own voice. You second-guess yourself. You overanalyze every move. You dull your instincts. You abandon your truth, piece by piece. Nietzsche saw people-pleasing for what it is, not generosity, but self-erasure. And here's the tragic twist. The more you please others, the less they actually see you, because you've trained them to love the version of you that's edited, agreeable, safe, not the real you. And one day you look around and ask, why does no one really know me? That's why, because you taught them to love your performance, not your truth. And when that truth finally demands to be seen, the people who only knew the mask, they might not recognize you. Or worse, they might resent you for finally showing up. That's 9 truths, 9 uncomfortable, raw, liberating realities Nietzsche believed most people only face too late. But here's the thing, this video, it's not about shame, it's not about fear, it's about awareness. Because once you see these truths, you can't unsee them. And that awareness, that's your first taste of freedom. But we're not done yet, because in the next part, we're going even deeper. We'll talk about that haunting feeling of emptiness, even after doing everything right. Why meaning is disappearing in a world obsessed with attention, and how death, yes, death, isn't something to fear, but something to use. Truth number 10. You can still feel empty after doing everything right. We're taught that life is a checklist. Get the degree, land the job, marry the right person, buy the house, don't cause problems, follow the rules. And if you do all that, then what? Then you're supposed to feel happy, fulfilled, at peace. But Nietzsche saw the truth behind that illusion. You can do everything right, and still feel hollow inside. Why? Because you might have built a life that looks good on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Because maybe you followed every rule except your own. Maybe you were so busy living up to expectations, you never asked yourself, what actually matters to me? Nietzsche warned that this quiet despair, the one that shows up even when you, quote, succeed, comes from living a life of structure without substance, from mistaking validation for truth, from obeying instead of discovering, from being so busy performing that you forgot how to feel. Most people don't realize this until the machine is already built, until their whole life is constructed around someone else's blueprint. And then what? It feels too late to change, too expensive to start over. So they numb the emptiness or pretend it isn't there. But there's a way out. You stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, what's mine to do? Because the real path forward isn't more success, it's more truth. Truth number 11, meaning is rare and attention is a poor substitute. We live in a world obsessed with visibility, followers, likes, views, shares, and for a moment it feels like meaning. But Nietzsche would have called it what it is, a performance. Attention isn't meaning, it's just noise. It gives quick feedback, fast dopamine, a false sense of connection. But it doesn't last, because the spotlight always fades, and when it does, what's left? Nietzsche believed that real meaning doesn't come from how many people see you. It comes from what you see when no one's watching, from work that resonates with your soul, from conversations that matter, even if only one person hears them, from choosing purpose over applause. And here's the tragedy. Most people don't realize the difference until they've tasted attention, and still feel invisible. Until they've been praised and still feel unseen. By the time they learn the lesson, they've built a persona they can't escape, and lost a self they never really knew. Truth number 12, death doesn't steal, it clarifies. Most people think of death as a thief. It takes time. It takes people. It interrupts your plans. But Nietzsche didn't see death as the enemy. He saw it as a mirror. Because when you remember you're going to die, you remember what matters. He asked the question that rattled generations, if you had to live this exact life over and over again for eternity, would you? Most people couldn't say yes. And that's the point. Death, he believed, doesn't destroy meaning, it reveals it. It strips away excuses. It kills the illusion that you have forever. It forces you to face the uncomfortable question, am I living or just surviving? Am I truly loving or just performing affection? Am I spending my time or wasting it? Most people don't start asking those questions until they're forced to, until they lose someone, until they face a diagnosis, until time stops feeling infinite. And by then, the pain isn't just about what they lost, it's about what they never fully lived. Truth 13, your freedom will cost you everything. That was fake. This is Nietzsche's final and probably most brutal truth. He believed that true freedom, it isn't handed to you, it's taken. And the price? Everything that's not real. Your fake friendships, your comfort-based identity, your coping mechanisms, your need to be liked, your carefully curated persona, gone. Because real freedom is not safety. It's standing alone in your truth when it costs you popularity. It's saying no when everyone expects you to say yes. It's being fully yourself, even if it means not belonging anywhere but within. Most people flirt with freedom. They dip a toe in. They talk about authenticity, but never truly live it. Because when the shedding begins, when the false parts start falling away, they panic. Because the familiar, even when it's false, feels safer than the unknown. But Nietzsche believed that unless you lose what isn't really yours, you'll never discover what is. And most people don't get there until it's too late. Until they've lived decades in quiet resentment. Until they wake up and feel like a stranger in their own life. You've now heard 13 truths, 13 harsh, liberating, deeply human truths Nietzsche believed most people only understand when the damage is already done. But this isn't the end. This is your turning point. These truths weren't meant to shame you. They were meant to wake you up. Because each one is a fork in the road. You know to ignore them, and you drift. Live them, and you begin. And maybe you're not ready to change everything right now. That's okay. Awareness always comes before transformation. But if even one of these truths cracks something open inside you, don't ignore it. Take a breath. Let it sink in. And when you're ready, we'll talk about what comes next. So here we are. You've made it through 13 of Nietzsche's hardest, most confronting truths. But what now? What do you actually do with all of this? Because insight without action is just a comfort mechanism. It makes you feel like you're changing without changing anything. So let's talk about where these truths take you. What comes after the wake-up call? Truth number 14. Most people don't lack time. They lack priorities. We all say we're busy, but the truth is most of us are not busy. We're just distracted. We say we don't have time to read, to work on our passion, to start that business, to sit with our thoughts. But we scroll, we binge, we fill the silence. Nietzsche understood that time isn't what's missing. Clarity is. He believed that when you stop being honest about what matters to you, your life fills up with what doesn't. And most people live like that for decades, filling every hour, but never living a single day on purpose. Because time isn't just ticking, it's voting. Every hour you spend is a decision, a vote for what you truly value. And your calendar, that's your real belief system. The question is, does it reflect your values or someone else's? You don't need more time. You need fewer lies about how you're spending it. Truth number 15. Emotional honesty is the beginning of real change. We talk a lot about mental clarity, about focus, goals, vision. But Nietzsche would argue that change doesn't start with the mind, it starts with the heart, specifically, your willingness to be emotionally honest. Most people don't change because they can't articulate what they really feel. They say, I'm fine, when they're exhausted. They say, I'm confused when they're scared. They say, I'm stuck, when they're actually just afraid to disappoint someone. Nietzsche saw that the first step to transformation isn't a new habit or a 5 a.m. routine. It's emotional accuracy. You can't change what you won't admit, and you won't admit it if you keep pretending to be okay. Most people only break through after they stop numbing and start naming what they feel. Anger, resentment, regret, desire, guilt, yearning. These aren't weaknesses. They're signals. Follow them honestly and they lead you to your truth. Truth number 16, philosophy isn't theory, it's a survival skill. To Nietzsche, philosophy wasn't an academic exercise. It was a weapon, a tool for surviving in a world that constantly tries to rob you of yourself. He didn't write to impress other scholars. He wrote to wake people up, to shake them from their sleepwalking lives. Because in a world where everything is monetized, branded, filtered, and fake, what's more radical than being real? Most people think philosophy is abstract, complicated, but Nietzsche made it personal. He asked, "What do you live for? What are you willing to suffer for? What would you still do, even if no one ever clapped for you?" These aren't theoretical questions. They're survival questions, because the person who can answer them honestly, that person doesn't break when life gets hard. That person knows who they are. So, what now? What do you do with these 16 truths? You don't need to fix your whole life in a week. You don't need to cut everyone off or burn everything down. But you do need to choose. Choose one truth, just one. The one that hit you the hardest, the one that made you pause. And don't just think about it. If you saw that your people-pleasing is erasing you, set one honest boundary. If you felt the sting of your shadow running the show, spend 10 minutes writing down what you're most ashamed of. Because change doesn't start big, it starts honest. And now, let's talk about you. If you made it this far, it means something in you is ready. Not for surface-level advice, not for motivation you'll forget tomorrow, but for real inner work. The kind that hurts, the kind that heals. This channel isn't for everyone, and that's okay, but if you're someone who's done pretending, if you're tired of living someone else's story, if you want to think deeper, feel stronger, and finally live differently, then welcome to Think See. This is a space for people who don't just want to be seen, they want to see themselves clearly and live in alignment with that truth. You're not late, you're not behind, you're right on time, right at the moment when the old story ends and the real one begins. If this video stirred something in you, comment below. Which truth hit you the hardest? Which one are you still wrestling with? And if you're ready to go deeper, subscribe. Because we're building more than a channel, we're building a mindset, a way of thinking, a way of living. Rooted in truth, driven by self-respect, built to last. Welcome to the beginning.